All right, coming at you with another tier list video. This time we're focusing on the mid lane. As usual, this will be a low elo tier list. Um, the goal here is just to kind of balance some of the tier list videos that are out there. Those kind of focus on theoretical, stats based on the champion and things like that. This one looks at literal win rates from op.gg, and we're focusing on patch 14.24. And I looked at NA in particular, looking at 1.1 million games from bronze, 1.45 million games from silver, 1.17 million games from gold, sorted all of the mid lane champions, and got a pretty good understanding of um, which champions have been performing well, which ones are struggling, and yeah, here's kind of the full view. As you can see, Heimerdinger, Garen, Vel'Koz, Veigar, Brand, Cho'Gath, Anivia, and Malzahar are the top performers. We've got pretty high win rates with Naafiri, Fizz, Victor, Lux, Galio, and Malphite as well. Some overall takeaways and things that kind of surprise me are that some of these tanky champions are actually performing pretty well. So, the likes of Garen, Malphite, Cho'Gath, Galio, Nasus even. Um, Somewhat surprised by that. Another thing that surprised me is that to find Ziggs so low in the win rate column, it's below 48%. So really not doing well in these low elos. I'm assuming maybe might be due to the really how well you have to position as Ziggs and space, and probably in these lower elos it's harder for some of the players to actually achieve that. Um, Other than that, we'll talk about some of the trends overall and kind of dissecting champions you should play and champs to avoid in a little bit. So, looking at champs you should consider playing: Heimerdinger, Garen, Vel'Koz, Veigar, and Brand. These were the top performers in all three of the rankings, so bronze, silver, and gold. Not really sure why Garen is still performing so well. Likely just people, the sustain and the wave clear and just constant pressure he's able to apply probably helps. And in lower elos, people do have a lot of trouble dealing with Garen in general. That might be part of it. Some of these other champions like Brand, Vel'Koz, and Veigar, obviously high damage dealers throughout the game, scale well, and just become monsters late game. So, as the game progresses, which some of these games do last a longer time, they do well. So that might explain that. Heimerdinger is just a pain for a lot of lower elo players to deal with. So that's likely why you see such a high win rate. He's able to get kills when jungler ganks and things like that. So this looks at some of the champions that have high win rates, but just wanted to kind of caution you. So Anivia, Sion, and Malzahar, great win rates, but just wanted to let you know that as you approach gold, their win rates actually drop. So still overall good champions, great champions to play, but just something to note that likely in the higher elos, people know how to deal with the likes of these champions. So that's the trend. The opposite trend for Naafiri, Fizz, and Cho'Gath, where their win rates are actually a little higher once you get to gold than in bronze and silver. And at least for Fizz, it's likely just because of skill. And then Naafiri, likely people know when to actually go in and how to disengage from fights. I know a lot of times, Naafiri is kind of like an all-in champion where once you go in, you're kind of in the thick of it. Knowing when exactly to do that is quite important. And Cho'Gath, I'm clueless on why the win rate would be going up, but seems like a pretty solid champion. Looking at some champions to completely avoid, unless, again, I always preface this with, unless you're willing to put in the time, willing to lose a whole bunch of games, and master these champions. I think they're on the harder end of champs. So champions like LeBlanc, Azir, Jace, and Kiana are quite hard to master. They have a lot of different things that they do based on the situation. Azir, obviously, extremely hard to master. You've obviously seen the pro players make godlike plays, but it's very hard to execute in the right moment. So again, if you're not willing to put in the time and lose a whole bunch of games, likely avoid these champions. Same goes for Smolder. For some reason, it's quite a high pick rate, but pretty low win rate. So just go ahead and avoid it. Again, if you see some of these champions being picked, buy your mid laner, potentially consider dodging. You don't want, if your goal is to climb, pick some of the champions that are winning, that are easier to handle. And if your teammates are even picking champions that aren't great, consider dodging, just to avoid 45 minutes of pain. That's pretty much all I got. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll come back to you with more tier videos here in the future. Thanks. Later.